guys, for today's video, we're doing episode 5 of Wreck This Journal. We are moving along in this book. I don't know how many more pages we have, probably a lot. Let's get started on the pages for today's episode. Okay, so I'm taking out my Wreck This Journal and we're flipping to the page that says, drip something here. Ink, paint, tea, close the book to make a print. Taking out, or should I say rolling out, some neon paints, as well as some printer paper to protect the other pages. And I will be dripping these neon paints randomly onto the page. I had no plan for this. I was not trying to create anything specific. I was just embracing the idea of dripping paint randomly onto the page. By the time I got to the purple color, I was sure this was not going to make anything cool. But I pressed the pages together. I really gave it a good hit. Some nice pats. I think that's enough. And now it's time for the grand reveal.
Yes!
I thought it created something really cool, and it looked like something to me. I won't say what it is yet. Here comes the regret. I did add some extra drips of paint to the bottom because I thought the green wasn't colorful enough. I pulled the page apart and realized this was a mistake. I didn't really like the way it looked the second time, but I dried it off. Yes, that is dry. And we're not finished yet. I decided to add more on to this page to make it look a little bit more like a butterfly. Can you see it? Do you see it? I took out a black paint pen and started outlining what I saw as the butterfly. I could be crazy and you might not be seeing what I'm seeing, but I felt like it was so clear that I had accidentally made a butterfly that I just had to emphasize it. My God, it's a butterfly! If you've been following my channel for a while, you may know at this point that I have a slight fear of butterflies. I'm underselling it, like an actual fear, like I run away from them. They scare me. There is a bit of a qualification to this. I am not afraid of cartoon butterflies. The cartoons are fine. In fact, I actually have cartoon butterflies all around my bedroom on wallpaper, and they don't scare me at all. But butterflies in the flesh, the real life ones, absolutely terrify me. I think my real fear of butterflies comes from their wings and how thin they are, and the idea of them hitting against my arm or going in my mouth. What? Like, those two, just worst case scenario, no. We first discovered I had a fear of butterflies when my mom took me and my family to a butterfly garden. If you don't know what that is, basically it's a place where there is a lot of butterflies. For context, as a kid, I was very well behaved, especially outside of my house. I was very quiet when I left the house, so I would not be screaming for no reason. Generally, this is supposed to be a very peaceful experience. I'm 5 years old, and I'm running around like a lunatic, hitting butterflies, screaming my head off, until the people in charge kicked me out of the butterfly garden. And that is how we learned that I am indeed afraid of butterflies. To add some details to this butterfly, I used my white Posca paint pen and added some little speckles all over the wings, as well as lines on the body. Butterfly wings are symmetrical, so even these little white speckles are supposed to be symmetrical across both wings. I tried my best. They're small dots, so it really was just not gonna happen for them to be exactly symmetrical. I signed my signature in this random little circle, as well as outlined the circle and gave it some shadows. I also outlined this random circle. I took out a yellow Caliart Art Marker for the background of this page. I wonder where I got the inspiration for this background from. Some of the black did spread to the background, but I kind of liked it. It looked a little bit like a shadow. And here is what the final page turned out looking like. I really like the way this page came out. I know it's not a perfect butterfly because the shape is a little off, but I do really enjoy the idea that I made this out of paint drips, and I wasn't even trying to make a butterfly, and it just ended up looking like that. Moving on to the next page, we're doing draw lines with your pen or pencil. Lick your finger and smear the lines. For this page, I took out my pencil because I followed directions, well, most of the time, and I made a quick outline. Bear with me because what I'm drawing is a little bit of a weird choice. It did involve lines and some finger licking. Never saying that again. But I did lick my fingers a couple of times and smear. Full disclosure, I did not lick my fingers too much. I did it a couple of times and decided that I didn't like the way it looked. At this point, you might be a little confused about what I'm actually drawing. Believe me, so was I. I was attempting to create an optical illusion. I initially did light shading before I started to darken things up. Once I started darkening things up, it made some things fall back and some things pop out a little bit more. This is actually the first time I've ever tried an optical illusion like this at all, so go easy on me. But basically, from the top, it's not really supposed to look like anything. But then when you tilt the camera to the side of the page, it's supposed to look like there's a giant crack or chasm in the page that you could fall into. At least that's what it's supposed to look like. I used my eraser to clean up some lines, as well as darken things up for a third time. I felt like darkening it up for the third time really made things pop out. And here is what the final thing turned out looking like. Here's the thing. I feel like in some parts, it does look like a crack that you could fall into, and then in other parts, it doesn't really. Is this perfect? No. But I do feel like it does look like a crack in the ground in some places. I don't know, I think I've been looking at it too long. Can you guys see the optical illusion, or am I out of my mind? Moving on to the next page, we're going to do pressed leaves and other found things. For this page, I took to the outdoors. I went outside and started to collect— ooh! I poked my finger with a rose. Yes, they have thorns on those. I decided to just take the petals from the rose so I didn't get stabbed again. I moved on to some leaves from a random bush. I also took some flowers from this lavender flower. No idea what this one is, but I took a petal. I took another leaf, and I went back to the lavender. Almost got attacked by a bee. This is a giant weed outside my window, but I like its leaf. I took this leaf as well, dropped my found things inside, and went back out for more. I found this yellow flower. We've got a runner. Found it. I'm just realizing now I don't know any of these flowers' names. Is that a peony? I don't know. It's nice. This pink flower, this leaf, this red flower is super cool. I got some leaves, and we're back with all of the flowers and leaves that I've found. The next step in the pressing process is to place them on the page in a way that I thought looked artistically pleasing. I think that looks pretty good. And then I took out some packing tape and taped everything down. It was actually quite difficult to tape everything down exactly how I had placed it on the page, mainly because, well, leaves and flowers are three-dimensional, and it's actually very hard to press them flat with a piece of tape. Generally, the tape will hit a piece of the flower or leaf and then move the whole thing into a totally different position than I wanted it. And some of them had like static that it would just like fly up. Like when I put this piece down, look at that just totally moved. But I finally got everything taped down as best as I could, and I cut off the excess pieces of tape. In some parts, I did leave extra tape and folded it over onto the back side of the page. Once I was done cutting the tape, I pushed down really hard just to make sure every piece was taped down. And here is what the final thing looks like. I know that this is not my typical Wreck This Journal page. I didn't really draw anything or paint anything. I know it's shocking, but I actually wanted to follow the real prompt this time because I'm interested to see how these pressed leaves and flowers look over time. I think this page could be a really interesting and cool page to look back on when I finally finish Wreck This Journal and do a flip through. And here are all 3 of the pages that I did for this episode of Wreck This Journal. If you guys want to see my other Wreck This Journal videos, I do have a playlist linked with all of them. I also recently released my own prompt journal called Draw Your Journal, which is basically like a diary but with drawing, and I make videos about those if you want to look at those. I'll see you guys next week for another video. Bye!